Hello, it's the Great Canadian Bagel here, coming to you with the 2021 Canadian federal election post-mortem. And this is where I'm going to address basically the results and where my model did well and where it did wrong, and any source of error that might be going forward and how I'm going to fix them. Pardon me. I will note some of the errors that I have found. Will be addressed later. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I consider the specific type of error that occurred, like the details of it, to be a trade secret and how I do it. So I'm not going to go into detail of what the particular error is, but you'll understand that when we get to that section. So let's go here. So we have 15 precincts reporting, and there might be, or left reporting still, and there might be a couple of ridings that have a recount. But considering recounts rarely have a meaningful difference in seats, and I don't believe any of the ridings with ballot boxes left to be counted, I believe they're all mail-ins at this point. I don't think any of those are in question, are in doubt, or too close to call. So I don't think it's going to change seat projections, and it might change popular vote, but not likely to the first decimal place. It might be second decimal place, might be third, but very unlikely to be the first decimal place. So with that, I think it is fair to call the analysis here. So obviously, the first thing I will address is I did correctly predict a Liberal minority, but I did over or underestimate Liberal seat count, notably, and I overestimated Conservative seat count. But we will go into this in a second. I don't think that is that bad. So we go here. The main comparison of the three principal models that I'm aware of. There might be more, and if there is, I mean, please feel free to comment below. I probably have forgotten some, but these are the three main ones that are in my mind at the moment as I make this. So we have 338 Canada, myself, and we had the CBC poll tracker. So if we look at the national results here, 32.6 for Liberals, 33.7 for the Conservatives, 17.8 for the NDP, 2.3 for Greens, 7.7 for Bloc, 5 People's Party, and then 0.9 other. That is what the results were nationally, and then equally in these columns we have for Atlantic Canada, Quebec, Ontario, Prairies, Alberta, BC, and the territories. Those CBC's absent for territories because they did not project the territories. I will also note I've only grouped up Atlantic Canada and Prairies like this because CBC does not have it by province in those areas, which is a bit insulting, all things considered, but it is what it is. Me, 338 Canada, both do have it projected per province, and I could have compared that, but for now, I'm not, because in reality, it doesn't matter too much for this analysis. So, yeah, so let's get into this. So, overall, 338 had a 92% accuracy rate. I had a 90%. He was a bit better. He's had more practice. That's with seats, though. If we look at popular vote nationally, I only had a mean squared error of 7.74. So for those of you who are not very familiar with statistics, mean squared error is just one method of assessing an error for something, a numerical error, and quantifying it. So in this case, what you do is you have your Liberal number here, 32.6, subtract it from the projected result, 32.8, then you square that result. The reason for the squaring is just so that all numbers are, it turns all numbers into positive numbers, and it increases the magnitude of a large miss. A larger miss makes a larger miss worse than a closer miss, whereas if it was an absolute value, it would weight them both equally. This overweights a bigger miss, which I think is a very useful way to useful feature for addressing popular vote discrepancies, because larger popular vote misses are a bigger deal. So we look at nationally, I had the least popular vote error, followed by 338 and then CBC, and almost all of my popular vote error, not all of it, but a very large portion of it, is I overestimated People's Party to Conservative strategic voting. So I forecast People's Party at 3.4. In reality, they got about 5. I forecast the Conservatives about 2.1 above, so that's about 1.6 of that 2.1 miss is People's Party. Some of it is block miss. I think it's closer to 0.2 though. And the other 0.2 is about the other. So all considered, I think that is quite good error, or a very low error. And I will note the People's Party to Conservative strategic voting is something I did address prior to the final election results, saying that I wasn't 100% confident in the degree I was forecasting, but because of lack of historical data for the People's Party, it was really hard to project their actual seat confidence. And there's a minor, this is the aforementioned trade secret. There is a methodological analysis error that I think I was doing. It's a bit hard to explain, but so my model doesn't just take raw polling data. It does adjust it based off of historical polling error, projected strategic voting, projected voting turnout, etc., etc. And in this particular election, it does look like I over forecast to the benefit of the Conservatives there. A lot of that was the People Party to Conservative strategic voting, though there are others. But a lot of this was not polling error, a lot of that miss, like the miss for the Conservatives here, and the miss for the People's Party here is not polling error, it is methodological error on my part that I'm pretty sure I know how to fix going forward, but it is a known issue, so I should be able to work around that. The other big error here, this is relatively small in the grand scheme of things, is with the block. This is 100% just a polling miss. There's not a single poll that had the block anywhere close to 7.7. I mean, if we go here, we go to 2021 Canadian federal election, and we go to polls. You just look here. There's one Nanos poll where they're at 7.5. Everything else is less than 7.5. And their actual result is 7.7. So that is just a polling miss, and it's a significant polling miss because the difference between 7.2 and 7.7 apparently is 5 seats. But it does make sense because Beauport, both Beauport ridings, Trois-Rivières, and some Liberal seats were extremely close, and then you increase the Bloc vote share and you decrease Conservative and Liberal vote share, which if we go down here, you can see that. Actually, the Liberals did better than my prediction for that vote share. Huh. No matter. You decrease Conservative vote share, you decrease NDP vote share, and then, oh yeah, because some of the ridings were NDP ridings, that's right. That's why I was confusing Liberals and NDP there for a second. And then the Bloc pulls out a win there. So that's basically what happened there with Quebec. So for me, my consideration, and I will also note here that I had the lowest mean squared error in Quebec as well, I think basically the entire model miss in Quebec, which amounts to 7 seats that were incorrectly forecast, is basically entirely due to polling error because 5 of those went to the Bloc when they were projected for NDP or the Conservatives. One was projected for the Liberals. One of the seat misses was a result of something that I don't think anyone really could have predicted. The People's Party did significantly better in Quebec than in 2019, but Bernier did himself, in his own writing, did extraordinarily worse So my model predicted that he would actually win, when in reality he did abysmal in his own writing, and there's really no. That's just kind of the fluky things that you can't predict of these kind of models, because there wasn't any writing level polls there, as far as I'm aware, and actually my model doesn't even handle writing level polls at the moment. I can think of ways to do it, it's just so much more data entry that I don't actually have the energy or the time to do that. And we're also probably going to get districts redrawn soon, and that adds more overhead, so it is what it is. Some other things to note here, though, as I just talk about this, is Atlantic Canada, I had by far the lowest error in popular vote projection. Pretty proud of that one, but not too surprising because I'm from here. The difference between 338 and myself in seat projection error is basically just my model quirkily spit out Dartmouth Cole Harbour as a People's Party win. I think the problem there is 100% is two factors. One, my model assumed the Conservative supporters in Dartmouth Cole Harbour would vote People's Party. It just appears they didn't vote at all. And secondly, it was a very no, that's basically the only thing. I was predicting people were voting People's Party who just didn't vote. They didn't vote. Turnout in Dartmouth Cole Harbour was down by like 15,000 votes. And even if they did vote for the People's Party, it's very likely they would have lost Dartmouth Cole Harbour anyways. It was a weird projection. I'm not really sure what that was. I'll have to dive into the quirk of the math, but that's not really something that's going to be interesting in a video like this, because it is a very nitty-gritty math thing that caused that projection. But that's the only reason why he has better seat projection accuracy than I do here. So the other two main areas to talk about is Ontario and BC. I mean, just quickly cover of Alberta. The Conservatives is significantly worse in Alberta than I thought they would. That's a pretty huge error, but I pretty much nailed the seats. The only one I got wrong is Calgary Skyview and Edmonton Griesbeck. So, is what it is. I probably underestimated the NDP there, but yeah. A lot of that, again, is I over-forecast People's Party to Conservative strategic voting. Now, Ontario is an interesting one. So, Ontario, I'm pretty close. I mean, I had the least error, again, in popular vote numbers. And, again, most of the remaining error is the known over-forecast strategic voting from People's Party to Conservatives. But with that, there's a relatively large seat or projection error of about 8.3%. I mean, it's the third best by me, of the regions. But a big thing here is a lot of the GTA ridings, a lot of the Conservative gain in vote share appears to be everywhere but the GTA. I haven't dived into great numbers on a riding by riding level or a GTA level, but it appears that they lost or held vote share in GTA but gained vote share in the rest of the province. And actually, interestingly enough, Windsor is extremely competitive now, and actually Hamilton too for the Conservatives, which is quite interesting based on these election results. I'll be interesting to see if that continues going forward, or if that's just a case of the NDP under Singh being bad at campaigning. But that is something we'll see checking going forward. Now, the one that I consider the biggest miss, even though it doesn't have the biggest seat projection inaccuracy and the biggest polling inaccuracy, is BC, because this is the most. It's such a consequential miss. So if we pop here, I made a little map of the election results. So this is where you can easily view this. This will be the thumbnail probably. So I forecast the Conservatives at 21 seats and the NDP and Liberals at 10. This is an 8-seat divergence, which is pretty significant. Like, yes, Ontario was, I believe, 10. I believe it was a 10-seat miss. Wait, I can literally check this. Let's see. It was a 10-seat miss in Ontario. But 8 seats here is huge. Huge miss. And unlike Atlantic Canada, whereas Atlantic Canada's polling was all over the place, BC was a lot less fluid. So this is really where the People's Party to conservative strategic voting, I think, really bites hard here. And that's part of it, or that's a big part of it. So basically, I had 1.8% more of the People's Party voting Conservative than actually happened, which would have put them at 35%, which probably would have put this closer to 17, 19 seats for the Conservatives with that kind of difference. And the NDP would have had actually a lot of the remaining losses. It would not have hurt the Liberals that much. The big one is, and this hit everybody, really, is the Liberals did amazingly in the Greater Vancouver area. They did terrible in the rest of BC, but they did amazing in Greater Vancouver. Ridings like Richmond Centre or Cloverdale Langley City flipped Liberal when everyone had them forecast in the Conservative column. Both myself and I believe 338 had Richmond Centre a safe seat for the Conservatives, and it went, I mean, narrowly Liberal, but that's a pretty big miss. And then there's the one south of Richmond Centre. I can't think of the name of it. Richmond Stevensville, I believe. That was also, it wasn't quite safe in my model, but it went it went from being likely conservative to likely liberal in margin. Like, it was a very big miss. And pretty much everyone missed that. So that is, maybe it's a polling error, but maybe it's just, this kind of goes to show you the limitations of these forecasting models. You have, some of these seats have huge misses, and yeah, some people are saying in hindsight that, or some people have been saying since the election that it's like it's because of the Chinese Canadian vote swung heavily against the Conservatives, etc., etc. Various reasons, people claiming for this, and I'm not here to discuss those. But it's one of those things where you only have so much data. You only have the data available that the pollsters are asking. And apparently, in this case, they completely missed that trend, or they didn't miss. If they did not miss that trend, it was not publicly available by enough companies. And Main Street does publish data for more categories than others, or more demographic categories than others. But if only one company does it, you can't use it because it will skew the model based on how inaccurate that pollster is. So, all this to say, I don't want to bring this on too long, but overall, I'm quite happy with how the model went. There is one major known flaw that I think I can correct going forward, potentially. It will be tricky one to correct because I still don't know how much People's Party momentum there is. But, like, will they peter out after this election, or are they going to keep going forward? We don't really know so far. But I believe, assuming that their trend continues the way it's going, I should be able to correct that fault in the model pretty easily. If they start receding, that will cause another problem in the opposite direction. But it is what it is. This is not an exact science, and no matter what anyone tells you, there is a lot of editorial decisions required to actually do these things properly. There's not many buttons that are editorial decisions, but the buttons that are editorial decisions are very impactful. Things like what polls to include, what are your criteria in polls, what is your decay rate for your polls, basically how much weight factor decays, stuff like that. They're not many, they're huge. Oh, another big one, incumbency bias. How much incumbency bias is there? Yes, there might be ways to decide this and figure this out, but in the end, these are all going to be editorial decisions because they're not derived based on data. But overall, I would say I'm satisfied with this, and CBC sucks because you look at all these numbers. They have very bad, other than BC, where I guess they did pretty good. They did pretty bad in every other jurisdiction in Canada for popular vote error. And I can't tell you what the seat error is because they didn't even guess. They did not even throw seat projection out, which really is a cop-out. Stake your claim to a seat projection, CBC. Don't be a nerd. I mean, that's a bad way to phrase that, but don't be a coward. Stick your name to a seat projection. You could be wrong. You could be right. I mean, based on these numbers, you probably would have been wrong. Or they would have been wrong, but anyways. Hope you all enjoyed the video. If you liked it, please like, share, and subscribe. Comment if you have any other models that you think I should compare myself to. If there's enough, I might do a part 2 if people are interested in one of those. If not, I will probably put this series on hiatus until enough polls have come out for 2020X election, likely 2023, projection to matter. And by that I mean if like there's only one poll, whatever. And I would need like probably 10 before I want to restart the series or the next leg of the series. In the meantime, I'm gonna try to work on getting some other elections covered, but we'll see. I'm not sure which ones because it depends on how much data and how much time I have. So stay tuned on that. Otherwise, hope you all have a good couple weeks.